What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, the Carolina Collector. Before I begin, I want to say thank you so much to each and every single one of you for your continued support of this channel. If you like what you see and you enjoy the content, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe if you haven't done so already. Smash that like button, comment in the comments section below, and hit the bell to receive notifications. I also have an eBay store called the Carolina Collector 001, where I've been selling loose sports cards and various items from time to time. I do have some graded slabs available for sale, so go check that out. The link is in the description box below. Thank you so much to my eBay customers who have been ordering from me over the past couple days. I actually got an order this morning. I already plopped a returned envelope back in the mailbox, which I talked about yesterday in my post office is either lazy or broke video. I know that video was a little angry, but today we're going to have some fun. I also processed a Pete Crow Armstrong refractor from 2024 Topps Chrome, so that's already sitting in my outbox. But we're finally going to review this guy. This has been sitting in my backlog for many moons. And because of a mistake that happened with one of the upgraded parts to this guy, it finally arrived, a couple weeks ago. I was able to complete the upgrades to this guy. This is the Commander Class Transformers Studio Series Optimus Prime. And man, is this thing epic. Oh my goodness, this guy is probably and arguably one of the best primes that I have in my collection, and probably and arguably one of the best primes in this class, in this size. But he does have his problems, which can be fixed if you're patient and you're careful, and then I'll compare him to some other primes and some bad guys that I got off camera here. But, right off the bat, I've got to say Hasbro really did a great job on this guy. So, we'll turn him around. He's got a bit of a backpack. That's to be expected. I mean, it's unavoidable at this point in time. But it could be much more egregious than this. But I tell you what, for a prime in this guy's class, I mean, geez, he is so cartoon accurate and so articulated and so cool. There's pretty much no pose that he can't be put in. So I'm just going to roughly, just do something here quick. I'm not really going to get into it, but I mean, the posability on this guy is just absolutely amazing. So while we're here in the kitchen, we are really going to take a deep dive into this guy because, again, he does have his problems, which we're going to get into in this video. I'll show you what I did as far as the upgrades are concerned. I want to focus on that more than anything. I mean, I will transform him. But let's get the big box out of the way. First, I want to talk about the upgrades. So we're going to tilt this camera down here just a little bit. And the first thing you're going to notice is that he's got a brand new head. Now, I did get a couple extra heads to try out. I like this one the best because I thought it was more cartoon accurate. And one of the things that I did was crazy glue the antennas in. Some of you may say that's a mistake, but these particular antenna for this head, they popped off quite a bit. And in order to make this work for the transformation, I actually trimmed down his antenna just a little bit. And because the cartoon, there's continuous inconsistencies throughout the G1 cartoons, it didn't really bother me to trim them down just a slight bit, but that's for the transformation. And plus, I didn't want to lose these because they were constantly popping off. So, and then there was this weird little stain that was right here when I opened them up. I actually had to take methylene chloride, rubbing alcohol, and some plastics from Meguiar's to polish up this window. There's still a little whatever that is on there, but it's really not noticeable unless you really are looking for it. But some of the upgrades that had to be done, for example, was flipping his heels around. Now, the heels on my copy were upside down, so I had to knock the pins out and swap the feet. Be very careful doing this because I actually put stress marks on his feet. And regardless and despite me putting paint on there, the paint actually, will come off because it is a point of movement. But you're really not going to see it. And I don't care. What it looks like even when it's transformed. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm not one of these man babies that's going to, nitpick and complain about stress marks. It kind of gives it a little bit of character anyway. So, but I did do the heel swap on this guy, and most of the upgrades that were done on his legs. So you're going to see all these gap fillers, which fill in these gaps really, really nicely. But you're probably going to have to trim these down just a little bit as well, because I was having a little difficulty with one or two of these, in particular this panel here. But once all is said and done, it closes up really, really nice. And again, it just looks much better with these gap fillers. There's a gap filler right there, as a matter of fact, and a gap filler right there. There's gap fillers back there on his heels. And, of course, you know, you got the head swap that I did, which, I mean, just looks so much better than that rounded head of his. And there's another upgrade that's in here, if I can just reveal that real quickly. When you turn his head around to transform him, there's another panel that you can install, which showed up late, and that's what was holding me back from doing this review in the first place. That covers up his head, because his head is exposed when you transform him into his truck mode. But that's done away with this particular panel, which I will show quickly. And that's the panel upgrade right there that covers up his head. Now, I did put a little bit of crazy glue on there. Unfortunately, it turned the plastic white, but that's what happens. You know, with crazy glue, it doesn't bother me at all. You know, I'm not so nitpicky that, you know, I'm going to worry about something like that, because it's going to be tucked away and hidden anyway, so who's going to see it? I did have to paint some of the spots where I did these gap fillers, but, you know, unfortunately, through wear and tear, that paint may just come off. But again, I'm not worried about that. Like I said, when I pull the pins out from its ankles, or from his ankles, I should say, you can see the stress marks on there, but that doesn't bother me at all. Listen, it's a toy, for God's sakes. You know, I'm not so hard up on things like that, like most content creators are, or collectors are. And one other little thing that I have to mention, I see a lot of people talking about his smokestacks. I find this to be a very soft complaint by people because of the nature of the transformation. These have to move. You know, if you're trying to I mean, if you're a grown man playing with this thing, yeah, look at me, I'm playing with Optimus Prime. Well, you may want to go seek professional help. This, to me, is a statue, you know, and a Rubik's Cube at the same time, or a fidget spinner. If I get bored, I'll mess with them a little bit, and then, you know, I'll put them back on the shelf. I'm a grown-ass man. I'm 48 years old, pushing 50. I have no intention on playing with toys. He's just a really cool static statue that you can pose. And if you're going to complain about the smokestacks, then you've missed the point. These are the same kind of people that complain about the NES and SNES Classic with the cable being too short. The whole goal was to have the mechanism, or the actual game system, sitting right next to you, so you didn't have to get up. But with the HackG mod, you can actually program the reset into the controller, thus forcing a reset. And now, of course, they have cable extensions and all that stuff. I know I'm kind of harking back to a couple years ago, but still, you know, people complain about this thing for absolutely no reason, missing the point that this was part of the engineering. And with the NES and SNES Classics, the goal was to have the game system right next to you, so you didn't have to get up. So you had the controller here, game system here, push the reset button. You didn't have to stand up at any time, but, you know, man babies. So, but anyway, yeah, this guy is just awesome. Once you sit him down and you transform him a couple times, the transformation is a little complex, but nothing too out of the ordinary for a transformer in this class. You got to deal with the backpack. I mean, he did have a backpack in a cartoon, even though it wasn't this big, but still, it really doesn't take away from the figure, and he does stand up on his own weight, which is good, and he's fairly stiff, at least my copy is. Let's bring out his trailer, and you can see he's got the landing legs, and plus we take the outriggers. You can swing these out like so. And what's cool is that there's a storage compartment here for all of his little extras, so you have to kind of like pull this down, and we have some thrust effects, just like in Transformers the movie, like what you see on the box right there when we first see Prime. So we'll take those out. We'll crack open, and that's actually cool that this thing has storage. And then, of course, you have the classic classic setup on the inside where you got the repair robot, and you have roller, which unfortunately doesn't connect to anything. I don't know why they did that, but whatever. Minor nitpick. And then, of course, you got weapon storage. There's Prime's blaster. And then you got the Bloosh effects. There's the Energon axe, which I really don't care too much about because he only used it once in the G1 cartoon. So I'm not going to harp on that like a lot of other guys and gals do who've reviewed this guy already. We're going to close this all back up. And we're going to get right into the nitty-gritty of this video. And that is to transform him into his truck mode, which is awesome. But before we do that, let's take a look at the box. We're going to pan the camera up here just slightly to make some room. Beautiful, beautiful box. This box is definitely a keeper. You got words and stuff like MGO would say. There's a big image of Prime on the side. And then you have a close-up of him right there. Now, as you can see, there's the original head that came with the figure. I didn't like that. The head just looked too round and too weird. This head looks a lot more cartoon accurate, and it's blocky, and it fits with the motif of this guy. I just did not like that head. And again, on mine, I trimmed down his antenna just a little bit, but that's for transformation's sake. And as you all know, and to mention this again for anybody that missed this point, G1 Transformers was notoriously inconsistent when it came to some of these characters with animation mistakes. And what's cool is it has this really nice background here, but I'm not going to display this thing. I'm going to put it right back in its box. But, you know, if you chose to display him, you could do something like that. You know, it's your stuff, your call. You do what you want with your things. So I'm going to push that back there. And now that we've talked about the robot and the trailer a little bit, let's transform this guy, pan him back down just a little bit. And we're going to take a look at his truck mode. Now, there's a couple things you're going to do before we get into this. So when it comes to his truck mode, it's a really nice truck mode, but you're going to have to trim down. I don't know if you can see them right here. I'm going to move his feet down. You're going to have to trim these down because these pegs right here were actually a little too long, and I've painted them in. Because when you see him in a truck mode, I'll explain a little bit more in detail, but you're going to have to trim down these little pegs here just a little bit and ever so slightly. And that's pretty much it as far as the modifications. Again, I did do the heel swap on this guy, and I put in the gap fillers, so without further ado, let's get him all transformed. We'll be right back shortly. Now, this is the reason why I trimmed down these particular antenna. Said that in the plural, of course. Is that when you get to this point in the transformation, you don't want those long antenna to drag because there is a swivel point. You have to swivel him in 3 different spots to complete the transformation. And what happened initially was that his antenna were getting jammed as I would spin around his midsection here. So that was the reason why I trimmed down those antenna. You really don't notice it. And again, with the inconsistencies in the animation, it doesn't bother me to have shortened antenna, but I opted for this. That really doesn't bother me at all. I mean, listen, it's mine. I could do what I want with it. Man babies can complain all day, but this was an option for me, and I took it, and it works fine. So let me finish up transforming this guy, and we'll take a look at its cab. Now, for all the man babies and intellectually challenged that are out there, this is why the smokestacks are loose, because what you have to do, you got to open up this panel here. His fist folds inside, but just to give you the abridged version of this, this is why those smokestacks move like they do. It's by design because you need clearance to spin his arm around. There's no way to avoid this. No matter which direction you go in, as you can clearly see, these smokestacks are required to move. Now, if someone actually designed, or some third party designed these smokestacks to be just a little higher, it would make him look a little ridiculous, to be honest with you, and would throw the proportions off, in my opinion. But regardless and despite that, this is why they did that, for clearance. And they actually made it easier for you. So all these man babies that are complaining out there about these smokestacks, you clearly missed the point of why the engineers designed it this way. So stop your whining. Just transform the thing. Anyway, let's continue, folks. Now, as you progress to the transformation, keep in mind that there are these two little notches that are right here that you have to fold out. And if you don't fold them out, you're not going to be able to get his legs to transform properly. What these do is they lock his legs in place once you complete the transformation, down here. So make sure that you don't forget to pull these out, because I almost did when I first did this. I mean, I'm a little more practiced at it now, but when all is said and done, these panels flip up. Of course, these are where all the gap fillers were on his legs, which it really cleans up nice. And I've already got a little bit of wear on there from the trailer, but that's fine. That doesn't bother me at all. I really don't care about that sort of stuff. But, once you get them all transformed, as far as his legs are concerned, this whole mechanism should just lock together. So, I mean, I'm not done transforming him yet. It's a little misaligned, but just to give you an idea what this thing looks like when it's all said and done. So, and of course, like I said, his heels are put in the proper positions. I mean, yeah, there's a little paint that came off, but that doesn't bother me at all. I think it gives the figure character. I mean, you kind of want him to look a little worn anyway. And plus, I'm a 50-year-old man, so who cares? What a great attitude, huh, folks? But just being honest with you, I mean, I can always go back and paint this up later. But again, it doesn't bother me. So anyway, let's continue on with this transformation. Now, when you get to this point, keep in mind that when you spin his arms around, and this is yet another example of why this was a good engineering choice to have these loose, because these will swing and rock, which will help prevent them from snapping off, in my opinion. But you can see there's the upgrade that covers up his face. Typically on standard primes right out of the box, it didn't have this, so his face would be exposed. But with this upgrade kit, you got to knock out the pin and put this panel in here, and it covers up his face quite well. And when you fold in his arms, it's going to snap into place in two different spots. So you have to keep an eye out for that, especially right there. So you kind of have to feel it. And once you get it in place, it locks down really, really nice. So let's move on with this transformation. We're getting closer and closer to his cab mode. So we press on. Now, this is a neat little trick that I use to expose this part of his grill during the transformation. You kind of want to get your thumb right up on the inside. I found that this was the easiest way to do this without, stressing yourself out. You have to push this out, pull this up, and then you're going to want to push that in place like that. And that was the easiest way that I found to actually get him to get this grill in place, so that this way you don't have to stress yourself out. I mean, whatever makes life easier for you, you do it however you want to do it. But for me, pardon me, flipping this grill around like that, I think is the best way to do this. So again, get up underneath here. Even when you want to transform him back into his robot mode, you just kind of like get your thumb underneath there, pull this panel out, and then fold it up like so, and then fold it back in place. But since we're transforming him into his cab, you want to put your thumb underneath there and then just fold this whole thing out. And I found that to be the easiest way. So we press on. Now, there's one other little point of contention I thought I'd mention in this video. You got to make sure that these line up, especially when you reach this point. There are these little notches that are right there that have to line up with the wheels. So this can be a little stubborn, but eventually if you're able to manipulate the wheels to line up with those two notches here and here, they should just click right in place without any issue or any problem like that. So we're at the home stretch, ladies and gentlemen. Let's finish transforming this guy, and then we'll hook him up to his trailer. We'll get him back into robot mode, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. Well, we're at the finish line, ladies and gentlemen, and this is where this particular mod really is going to come into play. And for all you man babies that are complaining, oh, the smokestacks, Well, this is why they designed it this way. So now you can move those out of the way, and then you get nice clearance for the transformation. But you're going to have to trim these down just a little bit, because what was happening on my copy, I think Jobby the Hong actually pointed this out in his video, and a couple other content creators pointed it out, that when you get to this point, you have to slot these panels directly into the cab. Now, what was happening was that they were just a little too long, and it would cause the cab to lean forward. But once you finally get him into his final position and you work everything in, you know, you give it one good squeeze just to make sure that he is complete. Once you trim down those little notches, look at how nice and straight that sits now. I mean, arguably it's still kind of like a little wonky right here, but I mean, once you put his trailer on him, it's really not that bad. So we're going to put the camera down here just a little bit. I mean, he does roll. He doesn't roll quite evenly, but I mean, I'm watching all six of his tires right now. Unfortunately, these tires are plastic, so they may not contact the ground, and this guy is still popping up because it's still a little tight, but it's better than what it was. This tire is not touching, and I think that's just because I may have to trim this a little bit more. But regardless and despite that, you see how it kind of wants to pop up on me? It means it still may be a little too tight. I may have to further modify that. But for what it is, I mean, you know, it does what it sets out to do once you trim these down a little bit. Again, I may have to trim mine just a little bit more to make it work. But, I mean, the cab sits on a 90-degree angle like it's supposed to. And then when you put his trailer on, now all of his wheels are touching because now there's weight up there. So, but, I mean, when you look at him, that is a proper Optimus Prime. I mean, this guy just looks epic. And then if we take his blast effects, which you can store away in this cab, let's push that background out of the way. Oops. You put these underneath here, like so. There's one. And here's the other. This is supposed to recreate that scene in Transformers the movie when he's ejecting from his box right here. Whoops. Okay, so we'll just let it sit like that. I mean, for what it is, it looks really neat. I mean, as a display piece, I mean, geez, look at it. I mean, come on, that's Transformers the movie for sure, but that's a nice little feature. I kind of like that. I didn't like that at first. I'm not into blast effects and blooshes and stuff like that, but you know, when all is said and done and you do something like that for a toy like this, I mean, it's just incredible. But all in all, I mean, this is as flat as it's going to get. It's nice and clean. Again, mine is a little worn, I guess, just because it's been rubbing up against the bottom of this thing. It's going to happen eventually. Doesn't bother me at all. So, and again, as you can see, he wants to pop out. Now, this is what would typically happen if you didn't modify those notches. So I'm going to have to probably trim mine down just a little bit more to make it work so that doesn't happen. But, I mean, this is a proper Optimus Prime. I mean, this thing just looks amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get him back into his robot mode. I'll give a couple size comparisons to all of you, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, now that we got him back into robot mode, let's check out his articulation. The head does swivel back and forth real nicely. Now, again, this is a swapped head. Does look up and down. It really doesn't look down too much, but what's good is that you can do this. You can kind of, whoops, his backpack wants to come apart. That's going to happen sometimes. And I got fat fingers, so unfortunately for me, I have to deal with fat finger syndrome. But, you know, he does cop a squat, so you can kind of get him to, like, kneel down there just a little bit. So that kind of negates him having to look down. But he does slightly look up. Again, left and right. You definitely have arm articulation here on his shoulders. Definitely 360. You got elbow articulation, does swivel, wrist rotation. His fingers do open and close. His index finger does move. These three fingers are combined together, which is fine. So if you want to put his blaster in his hand, you can do that. You can make him look like he's got, you know, a trigger grip, proper trigger grip. So I'm just going to do this quickly, just like so. And it fits really, really nice. Now I have to kind of like push his little finger in there. Okay. It does stay in there fairly well. I mean, I guess with heavy use, you know, his blaster may come out of his hand, but he does hold it quite well. The chest does open, though you're going to have to kind of like dig your fingers in there to reveal your typical matrix of leadership. Not a bad feature at all. I kind of like that because that's true to the movie. You know, you have a butterfly joint right there. Again, the arms move up and down. Movement here at the shoulder, at the wrist, hands move, etc. You got waist swivel, which is cool. He can definitely do the Jean-Claude Van Damme, which is awesome. He can put his legs up and down, just like so. The only drawback is he doesn't have any toe articulation, but that's because of the transformation. But that really shouldn't stop you from putting him into dynamic poses. So I'm just going to put him in like a random Johnny on the spot pose, you know, kind of like standing there doing one of his action shots, kinda. So, and he pretty much stands up on his own weight, which is kind of neat. So I'm sure his parts will loosen up over time. It is a piece of plastic, but it's a good piece of plastic. So now that we've seen all of that, let's do some size comparisons with some other figures here. So let me just move the camera up here a little bit. I'm going to put Prime back slightly so that we can actually see this right there. I think is fine. So we're going to take a look at my New Year Convoy 2002 from Japan, which is the closest thing I have to a G1 besides the next figure I'm going to show you, which is the Walmart exclusive 40th anniversary Prime. That's cartoon correct as far as the colors are concerned. And when you look at these two side by side, I mean, they just look glorious. Look at these two. Amazing, right? I wish they would have kept this detail on him, but that's fine as far as like this arrow is concerned. It doesn't bother me at all. It still works perfect. So we'll get him out of there. Let's get the animation Missing Link Prime. I didn't feel like it was worth pulling out the Toy Correct Prime because this is more animation accurate. So I thought the more animation accurate Missing Link would be a lot better to compare to. And again, these look great side by side. We have Earthrise Optimus, which at this point could potentially make this figure obsolete. I mean, look at this guy and look at this guy. Which one would you rather have on your display? Obviously, for me, my choice would be him. Not saying that Earthrise is a bad figure. It just doesn't work, especially with the, you know, release of him. And then I have my third-party Transformers Prime Optimus, which they size quite well with each other. As a matter of fact, they look real nice together. So then we'll get him out of the way, and then we'll start comparing him to some Megatrons. Here's my Goodbye Megatron G1, which, of course, he wants to do the little slide if you don't open his legs up. So there he is next to a Goodbye Megatron. Then we'll put him next to New Age Romulus, which kind of sucks that they don't size properly. I wish they did, because these two would be epic. Will I get Studio Series Megatron? I don't know. I'm not into Tankatron. I'm more into Two-Wayatron, Gunnatron. I'm not a Tankatron fan. And speaking of Tankatron, yeah, I'm a purist, I guess. I mean, in its own universe, that's fine. Now, here's my kit-bashed Hegemon. These two work out really well next to each other, and he is slightly bigger than Prime, which I think that's how it should be. Megatron should just tower ever so slightly over Prime, in my opinion, because he is the bad guy of the Transformers, and he should be imposing. So to me, this works better with him than anything else, I guess, until Studio Series Tankatron comes out. And then we have my third-party Megatron from Transformers Prime, which this guy is just a behemoth. So I'm going to have to pan the camera up right here a little bit. Yeah, he's gigantic. This guy is so awesome. And then, of course, we have the baddie of all baddies, Galvatron. Yeah, so much for my Leonard Nimoy voice. And just like with Hegemon, I upgraded this Galvatron so that he stands nice and tall. And he looks proportionately better. Of course, he's got the hand upgrades, the shin upgrades, etc. He's got the spire upgrade there on his back, as you can see right here, which works out well. And he towers over Prime, which he should. He's the bad guy. Bad guys are typically bigger than the good guys, so I don't mind that it's a little proportionately off. It works for me, you know, so... But Prime is Prime, and Prime still kicks ass. So let me give you my final thoughts as to what I think of this guy right here, and be right back. Well, I got to be honest with you. I really am having a good time with this Optimus. He's probably one of the best Optimus Primes in this scale that we've ever seen. Again, it did come with the heels in the wrong position. Switch them at your own risk. Like I said, I got stress marks on mine. Unfortunately, it's going to happen. Doesn't bother me at all, because even with a little wear and tear, it gives character to the toy. The transformation is a little complex, but it's not that complicated that, you know, someone who sits down with it for the first time couldn't figure it out. It took me a couple tries to get it, but once I got it, I mean, I can do it, you know, pretty much with my hands tied behind my back. But if I did that, how the hell can I handle the guy? I couldn't see it unless I was standing in front of a mirror. Language play. Anyway, with that being said, you know, with the exception of the backpack, you know, everybody's going to complain about his backpack. Everybody's going to complain about his smokestacks. You can't make everybody happy. There had to be some compromises with this guy. I love the fact that you're able to get him to hold his blaster like this with the butterfly joints. I mean, there's nothing you can't do with this guy. But as far as upgrades are concerned, I highly recommend switching out his head. And as you saw in the transformation, trimming down his antenna really doesn't take away from the aesthetic of the action figure in and of himself, because not for nothing, and I have to stress this, that the animation was very inconsistent from episode to episode. So you really don't notice it. To me, I actually like it because it looks a little bit more compact and balanced. And plus, I won't break the antenna because, again, with my heavy-handed mauling, with my fat fingers, I don't want to break them. So, you know, it's better off that I did that, you know, especially if I'm going to be posing him every so often. But, I mean, this is a fantastic Optimus Prime. I mean, you cannot go wrong. If you're able to get your hands on one of these for retail, I would do so. Take the time to upgrade him. The upgrades really do improve on the appearance of the cab in his truck mode. But then again, you know, even without those upgrades, it would still not look all that bad. But, you know, you have a lot of sticklers that are out there who are really anal retentive and are obsessive compulsive about appearances and all that sort of thing. So you do what you want. It's your toy. This is my toy. I did what I wanted with it. It's a fantastic, fantastic Prime. You cannot go wrong with this guy. I do highly recommend picking him up if you can get him at retail. Don't pay more than what you should, in my opinion. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's really not much more to say about this guy than I've said already and that other content creators have already said. So I'm going to end this video right here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for checking out this video. This was a long time coming. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications. Also, check out my eBay store, the Carolina Collector 001. The link is in the description box below. It helps to support the channel financially. Thank you, everyone. I'm so happy I finally got this out of the way. Take care. God bless. Stay safe. And I will see you all very soon.